The music stopped. Ace Frehley stood alone on stage. And he quietly realized something that would change everything. The arena held 12,000 people. Every seat filled. The lights were blazing, reds, blues, strobing whites cutting through the smoke. The amplifiers were cranked to levels that made the floor vibrate. This was 1978. Peak spectacle. Peak volume. Peak everything. Ace Frehley stood center stage with his Les Paul, 3 songs into the set. The rest of the band was behind him. Gene on the left, Paul on the right, Peter on the drums elevated at the back. They were in the middle of Shock Me, Ace's song, the one where he took the spotlight and the solo that made crowds lose their minds. He'd played this solo 1,000 times. On stages across America. In arenas just like this one. Same notes. Same bends. Same theatrics with the smoking guitar. It was choreographed. Perfected. Reliable. But tonight something felt wrong. Ace hit the opening riff. The crowd roared. He moved toward the front of the stage, guitar raised, ready to deliver. And then, 4 bars into the solo, he stopped playing. Just stopped. His hands went still on the fretboard. The guitar hung silent on his strap. The backing track continued for another 2 seconds before the band realized what was happening. Gene looked over confused. Paul turned his head sharply. Peter's drums faltered then stopped. The entire arena fell into shocked silence. 12,000 people holding their breath. Ace stood motionless. His eyes were closed. His head tilted slightly downward. He wasn't moving. Wasn't acknowledging the confusion rippling through the crowd. He just stood there, breathing, thinking, realizing. Ace didn't defend himself. He never did. To understand what happened in that moment, you need to understand what happened 6 hours earlier. The band had arrived at the venue mid-afternoon. Standard routine. Load in. Sound check. Costume prep. Interviews with local radio. Everyone going through the familiar motions of being Kiss, the biggest rock spectacle on the planet. Ace had gone through his pre-show ritual. Check the guitars. Test the pedals. Run through the set list mentally. He wasn't a talker before shows. Never had been. While Paul worked the room and Gene held court with reporters, Ace would find a quiet corner backstage and just sit with his guitar. Unplugged. Quiet. A stagehand had approached him around 5 p.m. Young kid, maybe 20, wearing a cruise shirt and carrying a clipboard. Nervous. Mr. Frehley? I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask something. Ace looked up. Didn't say anything. Just waited. My little brother is out there tonight, the kid said, gesturing vaguely toward the arena. Front row. He's 12. He's been learning guitar for 2 years because of you. He practices Shock Me every single day. The kid paused. I was wondering. Would it be okay if I brought him back after the show? Just for 30 seconds? He'd lose his mind. Ace studied the kid's face. Genuine. Hopeful. No agenda beyond wanting to make his brother happy. What's his name? Ace asked quietly. Tommy. Tell Tommy to keep practicing. The kid's face fell slightly. Not a no, but not quite a yes either. Yeah. Okay. Thanks anyway, Mr. Frehley. Ace watched him walk away. He turned back to his guitar, running his fingers over the fretboard without plugging in. Silent notes. Something bothered him about that interaction. Not the request, he got those constantly. It was the kid's face. That mixture of hope and resignation. Like he'd expected to be disappointed but had asked anyway. Ace didn't move from his spot. Just sat there, thinking about a 12-year-old kid in the front row who practiced Shock Me every day. A kid who saved money for a ticket. Who probably stood in line for hours to get that front row spot. Who was out there right now, waiting for the show to start, convinced he was about to see something magical. Was he? The thought landed heavy in Ace's mind. Was the show actually magical? Or was it just loud and bright and fast-moving enough that people couldn't tell the difference? Ace had been playing Shock Me the same way for 2 years. Hit the marks. Trigger the pyro at the right moment. Smile when the smoke effect kicked in. It worked. The crowds loved it. But somewhere in the repetition, something had shifted. He wasn't playing for 12-year-old Tommy anymore. He was executing a routine. At 7:30 p.m., the arena doors opened. By 8:15, every seat was filled. By 8:45, the lights went down and the show began with the same explosion of sound and light that had become Kiss's trademark. 3 songs in, they hit. Shock Me. Ace stepped forward. The spotlight found him. The intro riff thundered through the arena. He could see the front row, a sea of faces lit by stage lights, all looking up at him with that expression of complete faith that what they were about to witness would be worth everything they'd paid to be there. And somewhere in that front row was Tommy. 12 years old? Guitar student. True believer. Ace started the solo. 4 bars in, he stopped. Subscribe and leave a comment, because some moments only make sense when we remember them together. The silence in the arena was absolute. 12,000 people frozen in confusion. The band had stopped playing. The lights were still going, automated sequences that didn't know the show had paused. Ace opened his eyes slowly. He didn't look at Gene. Didn't look at Paul. He looked down at his guitar. At his hands on the fretboard. At the instrument that had defined his entire adult life. He unplugged the effects cable. The action was deliberate. Calm. He reached down to the pedal board at his feet and disconnected the cable that ran his guitar through the smoke machine trigger, through the distortion effects, through all the theatrics that made Shock Me sound the way it sounded on the album. Gene took a step toward him. Ace? What are you? Ace held up one hand. Not aggressive. Just wait. He plugged his guitar directly into the amp. No effects. No pedals. No smoke machines. Just the guitar and the amplifier. Raw. Clean. Honest. Then he turned to face the audience. I need to start over, he said into his microphone. His voice was quiet. Conversational. Like he was talking to one person instead of 12,000. I need to play this right. The arena was so silent you could hear someone cough 3 sections back. Ace positioned his fingers on the fretboard. And he played Shock Me the way it was meant to be played. Not the stadium version with all the effects and theatrics. The song itself. Every note clean and deliberate. No smoke. No flashing lights coordinated to the bends. Just Ace Frehley and a guitar, playing for a 12-year-old kid who practiced this solo every day and deserved to hear it played with intention instead of routine. The solo unfolded slowly. Each note given space to breathe. The bends were cleaner without the effects. You could hear the strings respond under his fingers. The runs were precise but not mechanical. Somewhere in the second verse, something shifted in the arena. People stopped waiting for the explosions. They started listening. Away from the spotlight, Ace made a choice no one expected. Paul and Gene exchanged glances. They could have stopped him. Could have signaled the crew to bring the effects back online. Could have overridden his decision and gone back to the scripted version of the show. They didn't. Paul stepped back from his microphone and just watched. Gene lowered his bass slightly, letting Ace's guitar take full focus. Peter, up on the drum riser, played a simple, steady beat that supported without overwhelming. The band followed Ace's lead. Not because they'd rehearsed this. Not because it was in the set list. But because in that moment, every musician on stage understood what was happening. Ace was remembering why he'd started playing guitar in the first place. Not for stadiums. Not for pyrotechnics. Not for the makeup and the costumes and the spectacle. For the music. For the connection between fingers and strings and the sound that came out when you played something true. The solo built slowly. Ace's eyes were closed again, but this time it wasn't from stress or realization. It was from focus. Pure, complete immersion in the notes. His fingers moved across the fretboard with the kind of precision that only comes when someone stops performing and starts playing. When he hit the final note, a sustained bend that rang out clear and perfect through the arena, he let it hang in the air for a full 5 seconds before releasing it. Then silence. Absolute silence. 12,000 people not sure if they should applaud or if something else was supposed to happen. Ace opened his eyes. He looked out at the front row. He couldn't see individual faces under the lights, but he knew Tommy was out there. Somewhere in that sea of frozen, stunned faces was a 12-year-old who just heard his hero play with complete honesty. And then the arena exploded. What followed silenced everyone in the room. Not polite applause. Not the routine cheering that comes between songs. This was something different. A wave of sound that started in the front rows and built backward through the entire arena. People were on their feet. Screaming. Some were crying. Because they just witnessed something they didn't know they needed to see. They'd come for a show. For a spectacle. For the biggest, loudest, most explosive version of rock and roll. And instead, Ace Frehley had given them something real. Gene walked over, bass still strapped on, and put a hand on Ace's shoulder. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Paul raised his guitar in salute from across the stage. Peter stood up from behind his kit and pointed his drumsticks at Ace. The applause continued for 90 seconds. Ace stood there, guitar hanging at his side, just taking it in. Not smiling. Not performing. Just there. Present. Real. When the sound finally died down enough to continue, Paul stepped to his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying the weight of genuine respect. "Ace Frehley." The arena erupted again. They finished the show. The remaining songs went as planned, pyro, lights, all the spectacle Kiss was known for. But something had fundamentally shifted. Every member of the band felt it. The crew felt it. The audience felt it. After the show, Ace was in the dressing room removing his makeup when there was a knock on the door. The young stagehand from earlier. Nervous. Hopeful. "Mr. Frehley? I have Tommy outside. I know you're probably exhausted, but if you have just 30 seconds. Bring him in," Ace said quietly. The kid, Tommy, walked in like he was entering a cathedral. 12 years old. Kiss shirt. Eyes wide. Completely overwhelmed. Ace picked up his Les Paul. The same one he'd played on stage 2 hours ago. He unplugged the cable, handed the guitar to Tommy. "You practice shock me?" Ace asked. Tommy nodded, unable to speak. "Show me what you got." The kid's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the guitar. But he positioned his fingers on the fretboard and played the opening riff. Rough. Imperfect. Exactly how a 12-year-old who'd been practicing for 2 years would sound. Ace listened. Didn't correct him. Didn't offer advice. Just listened. When Tommy finished, Ace took the guitar back. "Keep practicing," he said. "But remember something. It's not about playing it perfect. It's about playing it true." Tommy nodded, tears streaming down his face. Ace reached into his guitar case and pulled out a pick. The same pick he'd used on stage that night. He pressed it into Tommy's hand. "For when you need to remember," Ace said quietly. The kid left. The room went silent. Ace sat alone with his guitar, unplugged, just running his fingers over the strings without making a sound. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Years later, Tommy became a session guitarist. Toured with major acts. Made a living playing music. He carried that pick in his wallet for 30 years. When interviewers asked him why he chose music as a career, he always told the same story. About the night Ace Frehley stopped a show to remember what mattered. Ace never talked about that night publicly. Didn't need to. He'd proven what he needed to prove. Not to the arena. Not to the critics. To himself. Real power doesn't announce itself. It just plays.